Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gen AI Talk in 10, brought to you by SS&C Blue Prism. I'm Brad. He's Satish. Satish, why are there so many large language models? It was just about 2 years ago when OpenAI kind of hit the scene and they released their large language model and the chatbot known as ChatGPT on top of it. Now there's thousands of large language models on the market and even different forms of models. So tell us why that proliferation has occurred.
Thank you, Brad, for the question. I think it's a question we always think about, right? Especially when we see, I think there are close to 5,000 models or more at this point. It's just exploding, right? And the types of models are also exploding. And model is not one particular type, right? There's large models, there's small language models or SLMs, there's large action models, there's domain-specific models, there's custom models, you name it, right? We can talk about that, all of that, but just as a summary, right? The reason, I'll first mention why we are seeing this, but second, then we'll get into some examples. Okay. So there are a few reasons why, right? So first is the diverse needs by industries and applications, because if you take GPT, right, that's a humongous model that took 3 years to build or more, but it has all of the information from the internet, any written material, any books before 2021 initially and now updated, right? But basically it has all of the information. Think of it almost like a generalist, right? It's very general. It can answer most questions, but not very well for a particular domain, right? So that diverse need by industries will not be solved by a general purpose model like GPT. What you need is a more specific model. So let's give an example, right? So there's Bloomberg, which is a model for financial services, right? So people in that industry will benefit from that model because it doesn't have what I call the noise, right, of the general information. It's meant specifically for people in financial services. The other example is MedBalm, which is a custom model that was created by Google for healthcare by carefully curating medical data sets. Now, that is very, very helpful for providers or even payers in healthcare. So you can see why you would need something like that, right? Because otherwise, your questions of the model, let's say you're prompting a model, if it has generic information and not specific, it'll start making up things and you don't want it to hallucinate, right? So that's where you need something specific, and then you add your context, like you take insurance, for example, right? But if you have a domain-specific insurance model, but then you bring your context for the company that, is in question, can bring that context using something called vector databases. We won't go there. Let's stick to LLMs, but I wanted to capture that idea of getting very focused, right? And solving problems by not just industry, but by companies also. Then there is advancements in research, right? As we know, Gen AI is a field that's changing daily, if not weekly basis. New architectures, new training methods, new techniques that lead to improved performance, better efficiency, all of these things. There's new kinds of GPUs, right, that are being talked about now. That's interesting because that might change what's possible with these models. Then there's performance optimization, right? We talked about custom models and domain-specific models. We can actually optimize the performance of that model because it's more focused. So based on what's available to tweak the performance, that can also lead to more models. The other important thing that we're seeing, and this is really critical, is this whole idea of open source access. Now, why is that interesting? Well, companies sometimes don't trust the large language models that are available commercially because they're worried about data getting leaked, right? So we like this idea of taking an open source model, bringing it in-house, tuning it, and making it specific for their use. So
Yeah.
now they not only have control over that model, they also can, make sure that their data doesn't leave their organization. They can govern it better, right? That's why they're also using Blue Prism for those kinds of situations. There is also competitive innovation, right? Google wants to issue a model next. Mistral wants to do something else next. Meta, right? Brought Llama 3 recently. OpenAI, meanwhile, is updating its models. So you can see all these this innovation is also leading to a variety of models that are being. Lastly, I'll say, and this is an important one, ethical and bias considerations. We'll please focus on reducing bias and ensuring, ethical AI practices. I think we'll talk in a future episode about responsible AI. And this is leading to development of specialized models, right? Again, one more factor that addresses concerns around AI and ethics and bias. You'll see companies actually spring up that are saying they're more ethical, they're more responsible, they're, very much in line with the overall, the younger generation kind of getting more conscious about, the whole green energy and so on, right? And ethical considerations in products. Similarly, those considerations are also coming in LLMs. So there is an ethically built LLM and which reduces bias and so on, right? So very fascinating space.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned SLMs,
Yes.
small language models, and that's been a new space that has really started to grow as well. What explains why that's happening, and how are SLMs in some cases a better fit for what a company is trying to do with Gen AI?
Yeah, so SLMs are small language models, right? They are basically using a much smaller data sets, but very focused. So I think we all know Apple Intelligence that was just released. That's an SLM that's sitting on your Apple device, but you could never fathom, OpenAI's GPT kind of taken and then put on the device. There's no way that could happen given the capability of the device, right? That's where you need to, these companies need to be able to really curate what information is the model is being trained on. Really focus on what the user needs, or in their case, the customer needs, and tweak it so that it can be fitted onto a smaller device like an iPhone or an Android device. And so, device specific, industry specific LLMs or SLMs, small language models, you're seeing this happen in healthcare or insurance. There are companies that are focused on just those kind of curated, I'll call them curated models, right? So those are the SLMs. Basically,
Yeah, nowhere is this more evident than on Hugging Face, which is a marketplace for small language models primarily. But if you go there, you can type in supply chain planning or something very specific, and you'll see 50 different models come up that have been trained specifically in that area, each with a little different twist that you can procure from Hugging Face, and so that definitely makes sense what you're saying there.
Yeah.
A final question for you, Satish. So you've helped to understand why we've had so many models beyond just the industry or the specialized focus like within a department or what have you. What are some other ways that large language models are differentiating themselves from one another?
Some models that are more suited for emotional intelligence. Others that might be better suited for creativity. People talk about hallucination, but this is hallucinating in a good way, right? Where you can actually be very creative by allowing the model to come up with fantastic ideas, and that really helps from a marketing standpoint, on the creative side. Then, of course, there are models that are suitable for logical actions, right? If there's predictions, there's analysis, there is very logical, analytical things you want to do, then you can use those for the logical and analytical. Right. And well, you see all these different kinds of models that are out there.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we will see you next time on Gen AI Talk in 10.